Welcome back, everyone. Dr. Linder here. We are going to be looking at the three different types of muscle. So in a previous video, we've talked about epithelial tissue. We've spoken about connective tissue. Now we're looking at the third type of tissue called muscle tissue. Muscle tissue comes in three flavors. We have skeletal, cardiac, and smooth. We are going to spend a whole week talking about skeletal muscle. But before we talk about skeletal muscle, we have to talk about all the bones first, right? So that's why we talked about connective tissue, which is bones and cartilage. So skeletal muscle is going to attach to your skeleton. It is voluntary. You have conscious voluntary control of moving muscles that attach to your skeleton. However, cardiac muscle and smooth muscle, both of these are involuntary. You do not have conscious control over these. When we look at skeletal muscle, we said skeletal muscle is involved in voluntary movement. It's involved in locomotion. It's involved in manipulation of the environment, the facial expression. It's all voluntary. In this picture, it's showing the triceps, whether it's the triceps, the biceps, the pectoralis, the lats. You can voluntarily control all of those muscles on command. The skeletal muscle is made up of different proteins, and when we get into muscle in another week, we will talk about muscle physiology and the different types of protein fibers. You will hear the term actin and you will hear the term myosin. And actin and myosin are two important types of contractile proteins, and as light passes through those proteins on a microscope, it gives this striated appearance. Okay, so skeletal muscle is striated, but so is cardiac muscle. Cardiac muscle also has striations to the appearance. Okay, so when we look at skeletal muscle, it is striated. It is long fibers. They are multinucleated cells. There's also lots of mitochondria that we find with all of these muscles, not just skeletal. When we look at cardiac, not only is it striated, but it is highly branched. When we look at this, it doesn't look like skeletal where it's closely packed together. We see lots of branches, like branches of a tree. But the other unique feature of cardiac muscle are these intercalated discs, where we have these lines going this way. We do not see any of these lines anywhere in skeletal muscle or smooth muscle. We only find these intercalated discs in cardiac muscle. So what are these intercalated discs? Intercalated discs are where two heart cells come together. And they come together uh, forming gap junctions. So if this is a heart cell and this is another one, this right there, this right here is an intercalated disc. But if we were to pull these apart, we would see that the junction that is located right there at the intercalated disc is a gap junction. Now, gap junctions, if you remember from your reading, gap junctions are used for fast, rapid forms of communication. Now, the heart, you have the atriums on top, and then you have the ventricles on the bottom. And the pacemaker is up here, right? The SA node is the pacemaker. And the pacemaker is sending fast, rapid forms of electrical impulses to every single cell of the atrium, so that both left and right atriums contract in harmony and in sync at the exact same time. And then your ventricles will contract at the same time. But what allows the communication from one heart cell to another at lightning speed are these gap junctions. We'll find them in the neurons with the neurology. We'll find them with muscles as well. The other difference between cardiac and skeletal is voluntary, cardiac is involuntary. You do not have conscious or voluntary control over how your heart beats. Smooth has no striations, which is why it's called smooth muscle. They're spindle-shaped cells with a central nuclei. They're not multinucleated, and there are no striations. And the cells are arranged, as you can see in these tightly arranged, closely arranged sheets. We're going to find these in our organs. Okay, you're going to find them in the small intestine. So down here is the small intestine. We're going to find it along the esophagus. You may find it in the large intestine, the LI, the large intestine, which is here. You're going to find it in the uterus. You're going to find them around blood vessels, especially arteries. We're going to have smooth muscle. In fact, if I were to draw the layers of an artery has this part of the lumen, that's epithelium. Then it has this layer, which is smooth muscle. And then it has an outer layer, which is elastic. So it is the middle layer that looks like the coil, which is smooth muscle. And it's that smooth muscle that's involuntary, but it can constrict or dilate. When it constricts, the lumen becomes smaller. When it dilates, the lumen becomes much larger and blood pressure goes down. Okay? And this is why magnesium, this is why women during that time of month, when the monthly bill comes and a woman is menstruating and a woman's getting cramps along the uterus, women crave chocolate, especially dark chocolate. Dark chocolate is high in magnesium, and magnesium is a smooth muscle relaxant. This is why when I give patients sometimes that have hypertension or high blood pressure, we give them magnesium, their blood pressure goes down because it relaxes the smooth muscle. Okay? Okay, when I come back, we'll talk about the neuron.